Welcome to the History of Things. Today's video is on the history of rock and roll. 1950s, the birth of rock and roll. The 1950s marked the explosive birth of rock and roll, as young artists rebelled against the mainstream and forged a new musical path. In 1954, Bill Haley and his Comets released Rock Around the Clock, a seminal rock and roll anthem that ignited the movement. A year later, in 1955, the legendary Chuck Berry burst onto the scene with Maybelline, a fusion of blues and country that became a chart-topping hit. Elvis Presley, the charismatic and groundbreaking performer, emerged as the undisputed king of rock and roll. His electrifying appearances on television, including his debut on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1956, created mass hysteria and changed the course of popular music forever. In 1957, Little Richard, with his flamboyant personality and thrilling piano skills, rocked the charts with hits like Tutti Frutti and Long Tall Sally. Other notable artists of the decade included Buddy Holly, who tragically perished in a plane crash in 1959, and Jerry Lee Lewis, whose wild piano playing and scandalous personal life earned him the nickname The Killer. 1960s, the British invasion and psychedelic exploration. The 1960s ushered in a new wave of British rock bands, collectively known as the British Invasion. In 1963, the Beatles conquered America with their appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show, captivating an estimated 73 million viewers. Hits like She Loves You, Yesterday, and Hey Jude secured their status as cultural icons and musical geniuses. The Rolling Stones emerged as the bad boys of rock, with their bluesy sound and rebellious image. In 1965, they released Satisfaction, a global hit that epitomized the spirit of rock and roll. Meanwhile, the late 1960s saw the rise of psychedelic rock, inspired by the experimentation of drugs and an exploration of consciousness. Bands like The Doors, led by Jim Morrison, mesmerized audiences with their hypnotic sound, and Pink Floyd took listeners on mind-bending journeys with albums like The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, released in 1967. Woodstock, the legendary music festival held in 1969, became a symbol of the counterculture movement, bringing together iconic acts like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and The Who for a three-day celebration of peace, love, and rock and roll. 1970s, diverse subgenres and arena rock. The 1970s saw the diversification of rock music into various subgenres. Led Zeppelin, formed in 1968, soared to fame with their hard-hitting rock anthems like Stairway to Heaven. Black Sabbath, considered pioneers of heavy metal, released their eponymous debut album in 1970, laying the groundwork for an entire genre. Progressive rock, known for its complex compositions and virtuosic musicianship, took center stage with bands like Pink Floyd, whose iconic album The Dark Side of the Moon, released in 1973, remains one of the best-selling records of all time. The 70s were also the era of arena rock, with bands like Queen captivating audiences with their theatrical performances. In 1975, Queen's legendary concert at London's Hammersmith Odeon was like a rock opera extravaganza, showcasing Freddie Mercury's commanding stage presence. 1980s commercial success and MTV. The 1980s saw rock music embrace commercial success and visual spectacle, thanks to the rise of MTV. Duran Duran became international heartthrobs, captivating audiences with their stylish music videos for hits like Hungry Like the Wolf and Rio, both released in 1982. Michael Jackson, often dubbed the King of Pop, transcended genres with his album Thriller, released in 1982, which incorporated rock elements into its pop brilliance. The title track, Thriller, featured an iconic music video with dancing zombies, becoming a cultural phenomenon. Madonna, the Queen of Pop, made her mark on rock music with hits like a Virgin and Material Girl, both released in 1984, showcasing her bold and provocative persona. 1990s, the grunge revolution and alternative rock. The 1990s marked a turning point in rock music, with the rise of grunge from the Pacific Northwest. Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, released in 1991, became the anthem of a generation, with Kurt Cobain's anguished vocals expressing the frustrations and disaffection of the era. Pearl Jam, another iconic grunge band, achieved critical acclaim with the debut album 10, released in 1991, which featured hits like Alive and Jeremy. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Rage Against the Machine were among the other grunge bands that gained popularity, each contributing their unique sound to the movement. At the same time, alternative rock bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Radiohead, and the Smashing Pumpkins brought a more diverse range of sounds to the forefront, resonating with audiences seeking new expressions of emotion and creativity. 2000s modern rock and diverse expressions. The turn of the millennium saw rock music continuing to evolve and diversify. Modern rock bands like The Strokes, The White Stripes, and Arctic Monkeys reintroduced the raw energy of garage rock, connecting with audiences craving a return to the basics. Meanwhile, iconic rock acts like U2, Coldplay, and Green Day continued to dominate the scene, proving that rock's heart and soul was still very much alive. Emo and pop-punk bands like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy struck a chord with a new generation of listeners, expressing feelings of heartache and vulnerability, and forming tight-knit communities of fans. Modern rock, an ongoing saga of creativity. In the present day, rock music remains a diverse and thriving force, with new artists and bands continuously emerging. Indie rock, post-punk revival, and folk rock have found devoted audiences, each carrying the torch of rock's emotional power and creative expression. Major festivals and concerts, like Coachella, Glastonbury, and Lollapalooza, bring together rock music lovers from around the world to celebrate the genre's enduring legacy. The story of rock music is one of passion, rebellion, and unity, transcending time and cultural boundaries. It's a tale that continues to unfold, with each decade leaving its unique mark on the symphony of rock and roll, forever captivating our hearts and souls.